With more and more movies easily available on streaming services, it's harder to know what's worth watching and what might be a waste of your time. There are many hidden gems out there waiting to be discovered, and we want to help you find them. This is Trailer Rewind, a podcast where JJ and I, your virtual video store clerks, sift through the shelves to help you discover new favorites. Today is August 17th, 2021, and The Wall 2017 is available exclusively on Amazon Prime. You can easily find where The Wall is using a service like justwatch.com. It will tell you it's exclusively on Amazon Prime because this was a film that was developed by
Amazon Studios.
Produced by Amazon Studios. So if you don't have your Amazon Prime, another time, you're not going to have an opportunity to see this one. But if you're on Letterboxd and you have a patron or pro account, Just Watch is integrated into your account. So whether it's you're looking for The Wall or other films that we've talked about here on Trailer Rewind, it's embedded into your account. So when you look at the Trailer Rewind watch list or Trailer Rewind episode list, you can easily see where a film is currently available, because with streaming services, things frequently change at the beginning and end of each month. Yes. If you don't have a patron or pro Letterboxd account, or you're looking to renew your account, you can get a 20% discount on that at truestory.fm/letterboxd. That's LETTERBOXD. Because here in the 21st century, we like to occasionally remove vowels.
Yeah. Who needs them?
All right. So let's take a look at the trailer to see what The Wall is all about.
See that? Hit and run. Whoever he is, he's gone.
Unless he's a pro.
We got no movement, not a sign of a shadow. I'm going down there, and that's it.
Roger that.
Got eyes on that wall?
I got eyes on your ass, fancy pants. Oh man, talk to me. What do you see?
Something's not right.
Go ahead. Coming, man. How bad is it?
Eyes the bullet went through.
I got it man down. Ah!
What's your position, over?
We got a sniper. High caliber weapon. Requesting instruction.
Sergeant, I need your exact location.
Say that again.
Sergeant.
You got an accent. Not American. You a sniper? Where are you, man?
You get eyes on him. Where'd he come from?
I don't know!
If I were you, I would start talking, Isaac.
What do you want?
I want to get to know you.
I get one shot.
No. Second you touch that rifle, you're dead!
This is true. When this is over, his family won't recognize him. You're dehydrated.
How's this end, man?
Death. You will bleed out.
Scope is an extension of my eye.
You're fading. You're fading.
I'm fantastic.
The trigger is an extension of my fist.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
The rifle is an extension of me.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And I strike you down.
I know where you are now. Bang.
That whole speech is not in the movie.
Oh, the John Cena thing about the rifles. Yes. Yeah.
That's not in the movie.
Nope.
Interesting. Okay. That's the trailer.
That is the trailer. So what is this trailer selling? What is it setting us up to expect out of this movie? Because I don't want to classify this as a war movie. I think that's the setting. We get this whole setup of there's a sniper and there's two guys, right? So we get sort of like a suspense thriller. It almost looks like there's this, threat of, okay, we've got one injured. So, the other hiding behind a wall, are they gonna survive? That's what it felt
as
like to
I'm
me.
watching the
right?
trailer,
Yeah.
I say I'm glad I didn't watch the trailer before I saw the movie, because the movie's it's a relatively small movie. It's very compact. The
Yes.
story is very, very compactly told, and so much of it is revealed there in the trailer. But I also mentioned that speech that you have in the trailer of John Cena on the ground talking about the sniper as an extension of my body and the fist. I don't remember that being in the movie, and that to me sounds like the trailer is selling a war movie along the lines of like American Sniper or
Yeah.
something like this.
Yes.
It does get in, it hints at the psychological thriller at play here, but it doesn't sell it. You ask what the trailer's selling.
Right.
The trailer is not selling that. It's selling something more about American war, not even glory, war attitude. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's where I would go with it. But it's definitely not. It is the movie, but it's not selling exactly what you're going to get from this movie when you watch the trailer.
No, because it's giving us all the setup at the beginning, and then it really shifts into something different. I mean, we
Very much so.
Last time we talked about the Book of Henry, and that's what did you say, 3 or 4 movies combined in there. Here we've got 2 really. I think we've got the beginning, two distinct
yes.
films, and the trailer's really selling the first part of this movie, which is. Right. Yeah, there's more action there, and then things are going to shift. So if you're looking for that action war type of movie, that's not what you're going to get out of this, because
that's not what this is about.
No, it's much more, smaller, I think, is exactly, because it reminded me of, and it's again sort of a war movie, the Ryan Reynolds film Buried. Because he's a contractor out in the Middle East. So, and it's all, he's been buried underground in like a casket or plywood box, and all he's got is his cell phone. And so it's just him either monologue or talking on the phone. And so it's very similar in that structure of not a lot of movement in terms of geography. Your time is really a tight time frame. And so it's creating the drama within that situation through dialogue and a character's performance. And that's, I think, what we have here.
Yeah. Well, it is, I would say the trailer's that. It's something, that kind of thing. I think there's the other aspects of this film that the trailer doesn't bring up is this sort of psychological thriller thing, which you'll get in the description of IMDb if you go to it when you look at it too. But it's something along the lines of like even something extreme like Saw, or which I haven't seen any of the Saw movies, but I was also thinking of something like 127 Hours.
Yes.
Or earlier on something like Phone Booth with Colin Farrell.
Yes.
That's what I get from these movies. These are all relatively, compact stories, small stories that are told in this psychological environment that are meant to, I guess, excite the viewer or put you in the place of the person that the suspense is happening to, in an effort to put you on this ride a little bit. And the trailer doesn't really develop that at all.
No, and I'm glad you named those films, because I was trying to think through what are the other ones, and 127 Hours, Phone Booth. Exactly. That's where I would put these of a piece together. These are the siblings of that, right? Because it is about how do you create that tension? Because you're not going to have other people involved. You're not going to have a lot of movement around. So you've got to figure out how to structure dialogue and the limited environment that you have to create that tension, to create some suspense, and make that believable without it feeling so you don't feel the writer behind it pushing things. You don't feel that of like, oh, that had to happen because of X, Y, and Z. It needs to feel organic. And that's the challenge with a film like this of how do you keep an audience engaged for 90 minutes when you've got one actor on the screen just talking. Right.
And I think it delivered on that. Actually, if you, by that metric, I was happy for it. And if I put it alongside those films that I have seen, like 127 Hours or Phone Booth, I think it gives me the same kind of ride that I got in those movies in a wartime environment. And that I thought was pretty fun.
The challenge with those films is the rewatch value on those. Are you going to go back and watch it again? What is that going to do for you? Is it really about how this story unfolds itself before you? And if it succeeds in doing that, you're going to feel, I think, satisfied with the film. But I don't know that it's something that is a repeat experience, because it's so much about the drive of the plot, per se, of what happens next. Will this work? Will this not work? What happens? I don't get a lot more to take away. Well, when we delve deeper afterwards, there's a few things we can talk about in the nature of the relationship between these characters that are talking. But I would say overall, yeah, this is a one-time watch. Again, I don't know that I call it a war movie, because it's not really about the war. It's the setting. And it's a genre that I have challenges with, just like Western. I'm like, you're describing the setting. Not all Westerns are the same. Not all war movies are the same. It's the two genres I can think of where you're really just describing setting. It takes place in the American West, or it takes place during some type of war.
Yeah, it's far more like Phone Booth, or maybe even like Speed, or remember when we had that rash of like Mad Bomber movies, but were they like Blown Away, and what was the other one with it? They all came out at the same time. It's like, the Pop Quiz Hot Shot movies. It's those kind of movies. If you enjoy that, then this is going to be in that war setting. This is going to be that kind of movie in the war setting for you. And I can see, it's interesting that it's an Amazon movie, because I think it probably would enjoy a nice release in the theater, because these are kind of popcorn style movies that come out that way. And I don't think we're going to see it that way because it's an Amazon exclusive, but it's the kind of thing, like you're saying, it's a single watch. And if you like that psychological thrill ride in the setting of a war, you're going to like this movie.
Yeah. So where did this one end up for you then?
Well, so I actually had to rank it twice, because I liked the movie. I didn't like the resolution, and we'll talk about that more when we get into the more in-depth thing about the movie. But so the first time I ranked it, I put it, my middle block is another Trailer Rewind movie, which is All About Nina. So I first started with saying that it was better than All About Nina, but then it lost to everything in the top half. So I went all the way to the bottom. So I tried it again, saying not beating that, and it ended up in a much more comfortable place. So it went to 186 of 264 for me. And where that is on my chart is just below It Chapter 2, which I think, again, is a much bigger movie, and it's horror, so that's in the bottom half of my stuff, but I think it was bigger and more interesting. And then right above a movie that we just recently did, which was Landline. So
okay.
So it shows up in an interesting place for me, and that for me is not really consistent with where I would give it as a ranking. I gave it a 2.5 because of all the things that we're talking about. It's not a very big movie, but it is an entertaining thrill ride, and I said it was a like. So 2.5 and a like, and 186 out of 264.
Okay.
How about you?
Yeah, my list is starting to grow, because I'm at 775, and now my middle block ends up. Sometimes I just have to re-rank some things, because right now my middle block is Return of the Jedi, which is a
weird middle block.
Yes, I'm just and I think I got to re-rank that one, because I'm like, that seems like it should be higher. I don't know, but I've been watching just a lot of great films. I've been filling in a lot of gaps in places, and so it's been just shifting things. So of course I didn't rate it higher than Return of the Jedi.
And Jedi is polarizing for people. It's my favorite. It's literally my favorite of all the Star Wars movies, but it's polarizing for people. So I think it's interesting that it's in your middle.
Right. As Andy will say, I have some quibbles, right? There's some things that it's not perfect, but it ends in an interesting spot. And so 2 spaces above it, Trailer Rewind film we talked about a couple years ago, the Bradley Cooper film Burnt, where he's the chef.
Oh, I love that one.
Right.
Yeah.
And then a few spaces below that, film board pick The Circle. And then, right below that, another Trailer Rewind, the other Emma Watson movie that we've talked about on Trailer Rewind, Colonia. The one where Colonia. Yes, exactly. So it's at 504 out of 775. So it's in that, again, that spot of sort of in the middle-ish of, I enjoyed watching it. I'm not going to come back to it. For me, it's 3 stars. That's usually where I start out, and it can move up or down. And it may have gone up and down while watching, but just, sort of ends right there at 3 stars for me.
Sure. But it was a like as well.
Yes. And it was a like. Yes, I did. I did like that. And over at Letterboxd, it has a weighted average review of 3 stars based on just short of 7,000 reviews. And this is where we'll see interesting discrepancies again between the number of ratings and reviews, because over at IMDb, it has a rating based on 25,000 votes and a rating of 6.2. So,
okay.
Nearly
That's close.
3 to 4 times more people, rating this over at IMDb as compared to Letterboxd, but they still end up in that, that middle ground of 3.0 or 6.2. So that's, I think, where this film belongs. That's our recommendation. Is this a flick for you? Well, you can check out The Wall over on Amazon Prime. If you're still not sure, you can hang around and listen. We're going to go dive into a deeper conversation about The Wall. But before we head out into the desert to discuss The Wall, we need to give credit where credit is due. Trailer Rewind is a member of the True Story FM Entertainment Network. Our episodes are engineered by the wonderful Pete Wright, and our intro music is the song Doodah by Ian Post. All right, JJ.
Yeah.
There's not a lot to talk about on this film, but I'm interested to see
small.
where our conversation goes with this one, because the trailer sets up everything, but to me it's missing what the film really is about, which I was pleasantly surprised by some of the layers to this and how it developed. Because at first I thought, okay, it's just compelling dialogue between this soldier and the sniper. That we get the reveal that it's the sniper that has, disguised himself as, an American. But then we get this ongoing dialogue as our main character, played by Aaron Taylor-Johnson, is trying to escape his predicament. Right, he's trapped. Right. And he's got to get out. So we've got sort of a ticking clock, because our setup early on is he and John Cena. So we've got John Cena playing Sergeant Matthews and Aaron Taylor-Johnson playing Sergeant Isaac, have been out there. They got called out to investigate, and there's a construction site that everybody's been killed, and they're out there looking for the sniper, and they've been out there for 18 hours or something like that. They've been out there a long time, so they're ready to call it. And that's when they go to John Cena goes down, investigate. He's shot by the sniper, and that really sets things in motion. So they've been out there. They are exhausted. They're tired. They're thirsty. It's a hot part of the day, and now we've got somebody injured and bleeding out. So we've got multiple reasons for this situation needs to be resolved quickly. It's not we can wait this out type of thing. And other circumstances develop. The snipers hit the antenna on the radio, so we've lost communication. We've got all of those circumstances to create this tense moment for everything. And so I thought, okay, where do we go from there? You've got us to this point where, okay, now it's the two guys talking, and this could be anywhere, right? I mean, this is the thing is, here's a guy that's a threat to you. You're trying to escape. It doesn't need to be in the desert. It doesn't need to be war. I mean, there's other ways that you can configure this. So I have to think about, why was this setting chosen? Because it's not just the Middle East conflict. It's 2007, 2008, as President Bush has declared victory, mission accomplished, and they're supposed to be,
why are you still here?
Yes, exactly. So that's where I thought, okay, what are you trying to tell me with this
Which
film?
all of a sudden becomes so timely with what's happening in Afghanistan, of course, right now. But
Yes, we should say, yes, we're recording this on August 17th, 2021, where, it's been it's all over the headlines of everybody getting out, fleeing, the Taliban taking control, reasserting control, and everybody wondering what the status is as President Biden's trying to just, regain control, I think, of the public perception of what's going on, and whether we ever had control. And that's a whole different conversation. It's
a mess right now, but it also has to do with this kind of thing of President Bush in this story. It's just after President Bush has declared victory in Iraq, and the main sort of complicating factor of this is, why are you still here? And honestly, one of the first questions that we try to answer is, what do we think this film is trying to accomplish? And I think, other than those films we talked about in the intro, where it's this sort of small film that's meant to be this thrill ride, I don't think it's really trying to accomplish much beyond that. And the reason why I say that is because so much of the complicating incident, so much of what puts John Cena and Aaron Taylor-Johnson, these two characters, in the situation, really doesn't need to happen. I mean, it's really strange for them to go down into a place with absolutely no cover, and then when one gets shot at, the other one to chase after him into that extremely other vulnerable position. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless they don't have any information. And I think that, with some of the banter that you see completely in the trailer before, you get a sense of the fact that maybe they're just not believing that anything's to worry about here. But it doesn't make any sense other than to set up this psychological thrill ride where you learn through the course of this film that this antagonist, this unseen antagonist, is brilliant and extremely talented and diabolical and calculating and all these things. And it's a slow reveal of all the ways which this antagonist is those things. So I think when you talk about what this film is trying to accomplish, it gets into that sort of Saw type territory where all of the traps have been set and us as the audience members only get intensified with the sort of drama as we go based on how the film reveals what's happening in it. So any of those other things that could potentially be ideas about this, about maybe, current events or American foreign policy, or they get into some emotional things about wartime guilt and friendly fire and a bunch of things. And you could even maybe draw some interesting mind bender ideas about what is really happening, or is this maybe just a death rattle fantasy of one of the soldiers that's on the ground? There's a lot of different ways to interpret it, but ultimately I think what the film is trying to accomplish is this compact psychological thrill ride, which they set up with this sort of complicating incident to slowly reveal how diabolical our antagonist is.
Right. I think you're right on with that, because I think that's what this is trying to accomplish. Is we're going to give you a thrill ride for 90 minutes, and at the end of it you can walk away and you'll have gone on this journey. I mean, it's like a roller coaster, right? You get off like, okay, I had a great time with that, I'm moving on to the next thing. Because you're right, there are hints of things, but not enough, because we get into the whole issue with Sergeant Isaac and his scope that's from it's not his, and we get that line about, it's bad luck, you've seen a dead man's scope and all of that. And so we get that whole thing is, guilt and, all of those pieces, but it's just there, I feel like, to add just a little seasoning to the story, right? Just add a little flavor to it. There's nothing to hold on to because we never get any resolution to that. It's just there to add something. I suppose you could argue that it's a little bit of our antagonist's psychological warfare, because he's been listening. So he's been hearing everything. So it's a little bit perhaps of that manipulation, but yeah, those are things that I wanted a little bit more, because if we're going to sit with somebody who's looking at the possibility of not getting out of here, are they really going to be reflecting on? Are they going through those thoughts of, choices they made? Is this that time for reflection on the things you've done with your life and guilt and all of that? But that's not what this film's about. And so we're not going to spend time in there with that. And it isn't, I think, ultimately by the time we get to the end, I don't think it's a commentary on, I suppose you could say it's a commentary on foreign policy. The important note I think that we should talk about is that the initial ending was changed after a test screening.
I didn't know this.
So
in what way?
So spoilers that we're getting into, just in case
yes,
people need to know, because this is talking about changes to the ending. In the initial ending, they kill the sniper and Sergeant Isaac gets away. Happy ending.
They kill does you don't know how?
I don't know how, but so then after that screening, director Doug Liman asked Amazon for some money and said, we're going to change the ending.
So audiences didn't like that.
I don't know that. I guess I'm assuming when they changed it, I'm assuming it was not the reaction that they wanted. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So, but I can't understand why they would like this version better, where the antagonist, the sniper,
right,
he's just graduating to larger and larger destructive
And that's where I wonder if that's where your commentary on foreign policy comes in,
Sure.
because then it is, because I watched this with my brother and we were talking about this, because I said, how long have we had films, set about the conflict in the Middle East? I'm like, we can go back to, what is it, like 1999 with George Clooney and Three Kings.
Three Kings is the first one I thought of.
And that's 22 years ago that we've been telling stories, because this has been just something that is always there for an entire for my kids, that has always been military occupation in the Middle East. That's always been a conflict. It's never been resolved. And I think with this ending of, is it a commentary on the Middle East? It's something that will just destroy us by being there. That it is, we cannot win, and the longer we stay there, the worse it gets, because it's going to just continue to grow and consume us as it learns more about us. Because that's what we see with this sniper.
Wow. Well, that's a great interpretation of it. And if they want to go that way, but
that's
with that interpretation, and now with the knowledge that that wasn't the original ending intent, I think that that's less likely what they were trying to do with the story. But I think that makes for a very poetic idea for what's happening, and potentially maybe audiences were feeling that way, right? So they put some creative boundaries around the way that the audience was feeling to do it that way. I think but that's not the way it presents. I mean, it really, with all these little tidbits, the way it goes through, and maybe, for a very astute viewer or someone who wants to go deep on any of these interpretations, I think you can do that. But ultimately, it's more this sort of tangential thing to the psychological thriller story that sits here. And I really think it falls into the category of something like Saw, where they're just, it's literally a military funhouse of tragedy that you kind of live through as you go through the story.
About midway through, I was wondering if this is, since, again, due to the limited, setting and single character, and his, the vast majority is a conversation he's having with somebody he cannot see that's on the radio. I was wondering, is this in his head? Did something happen?
I was thinking that the whole way through.
He's out there
because he had that moment. There was a fade to black. After the initial time he gets behind the wall. You could put that interpretation for it too. That this, and that's what I mean by a death rattle. That could be what we're telling here, because he goes through moments of confession. He goes through repentance. He goes through these things. Wouldn't that be an interesting interpretation as well?
Yeah, because I thought there's only a couple ways that this can end. He's going to die. I mean, well, there's two. He's going to die here, or he's going to get rescued. And I thought, okay, so that can work either way, sort of with the death rattle, because yes, and then it reveals that he's, dead, or they get here and he's on the verge of death and they rescue him. I didn't know that either one of those were going to be satisfying to me, because I wasn't getting enough of the character. And that's I think the weakness of the film for me is, by the time it was done, I thought, I mean, I'm never bored watching this. And I give, great credit to Aaron Taylor-Johnson, who is an actor that I've never fallen in love with a performance of his before. But I mean, he carried this movie. He had
That's because he's such a good actor, I would say, because honestly, he does everything so selfless.
Yes.
Like, I was shocked the whole time watching him. I'm like, I know this actor. How come I don't see him in this character?
Right.
And it's because he's such a good actor that he transforms when he gets into these new roles. So I think that's the thing. I agree with you. I don't think I was satisfied with the ending. But I liked the movie all the way through. It is that ride, but it ends the ride with this sort of slam into the wall.
Yes.
Unfortunately. It's a roller coaster that slaps you in the face when you're done with it.
Right. But so I'd say, I mean, credit to Aaron Taylor-Johnson acting and Dwayne Worrell's script on this.
Yep.
I mean, because I thought, this is, at what point am I going to get bored? At what point am I going to look at my watch? At what point am I going to be, okay, I've pieced it together. I know what's happening. I'm just waiting for it to play out. And I wasn't really at that point anywhere in this movie. So, which is, again, why I keep it at the 3 stars, because I was really surprised at how well it did what it needed to do. But it's empty calories at the end of the day. There's nothing to walk away with, which is fine, because I think that's what the film was trying to accomplish. It wasn't striving for a big statement. I wish it had, because there were so many things that worked well. I wanted so much more for this, that I could give it a really solid recommendation of, like, this is going to give you something to sit down and talk about with a friend afterwards because trying to tackle complex things. No, it's not. But I guess that's, this is your popcorn movie. This is the challenge about talking about a movie like this, because ongoing conversation in the Discord, movies where nothing happens. This is a movie where literally nothing really happens other than
Nope.
we watch Sergeant Isaac sort of move around behind the wall. I mean, that's,
Right. And try something else.
And try
Wait,
something.
Okay, what about this gun?
Right.
What about this thing? What about this radio? What about this? And it's all like, nope, that's not going to work. Nope, that's not going to work. And it's just, it's a parade of crises that all fail, basically, which build on the suspense and the drama. But other than that, like, that's why it's not going to be a rewatch, because you don't really need to see any of this again to know how the roller coaster feels.
That is true. So I have to then I look at the actor, I look at the script in terms of keeping me engaged. Then I'm going to look at the other thing is, you've got an actor sitting there up against a wall. Okay, what can you do visually to change things up? And there is one shot that stood out to me, which is that really, really slow push in on him as he's laying there on the ground, because I'm like, okay,
that was the best.
That, because it's just creeping, slowly creeping in. And I thought, okay, done well. Because this was what I asked myself. Doug Liman, you're, Edge of Tomorrow, Born, action. I'm like, you're tackling a movie where it's a guy sitting here. So, and maybe that was the challenge for him of, how do I do minimalism, basically, in terms of that? And credit to him. Yeah.
Well, that shot does a lot because it expresses passage of time. It makes everything feel slower, feel more intense, and yet, while time is still passing, it does all these things. It accomplishes all these things in a very artful way. But the majority of it is really, like you say, just, shots of Aaron Taylor-Johnson and him sweating and him hurting behind the wall. And really, again, the movie's not about that. The movie's not about showing it in an artful way, because it's all so compact. There's nothing really to show artfully. It's really in service to the suspense of the story.
So if I think about the different sort of phases of the story that we go through, because we talked about the trailer giving us the whole setup, then we get a significant chunk of time with Sergeant Isaac and our mystery sniper. But then as we get towards the end, of course, Sergeant Matthews is going to regain consciousness. So he's not dead. He's bleeding, unconscious. And I'd say of everything in the film, that was the piece that felt the most unnecessary or contrived to me, because Isaac's, identified where the sniper was. And I loved that sequence of the use of sound, of you're on the radio and noticing what's sound is going on in the background while he's talking to help you identify where he is. So Sergeant Isaac's able to identify where the sniper is, but then to have, it just felt like, okay, you've got a guy that's injured who's been bleeding out, and he's going to fire with precision to take out a sniper hidden in, we get a muzzle flare flash, to give some general vicinity of that. But you're trying to take out the sniper who is arguably the most accurate shooter that has ever lived on the face of this earth, because he's aiming for specific things and can do
100%.
that, which leads to, again, that, is it real? Is this too supernatural that he can, target, I'm going to take out the antenna and your knee and all of those pieces. And that, as they said in the, beginning, they're all headshots, right? Who's this accurate? Is it a pro? I thought, there's no way, injured, bleeding out, got like one or two shots, I'm going to take out the hidden sniper that I know the general vicinity of. And it was like this false hope, right?
Well, there's that, is it realistic? Maybe not. The other part is that, if John Cena actually is going to die in the first 12 minutes of a movie,
right,
he's going to come back because it's John Cena.
True.
And I think John Cena is terribly likable in everything he does.
Oh, yeah.
So I was happy that he came back. But yeah, it's the kind of thing where you get that earlier, and this is in the trailer as well, where Eyes says to him, "Don't touch that rifle, you'll be dead the moment you do."
Right.
And then later on, they think, well, maybe we can sneak it. Maybe he'll be able to do it. But no, the logic still stands from earlier in the film. If you're up against the greatest sniper who never lived, then you aren't going to have a chance, even if you try it at the end.
The wind did come to their aid a little bit to create some dust to sort of obscure, but
sure.
Yeah, I know, I agree. That's where I thought, all right, Yeah, that's probably my biggest issue with that. But again, I was so swept up in it that I was willing to be forgiving because I wanted to see where they were going to go with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's, again, a credit to the film as, again, pure entertainment. That's where we are.
I think, and that's why I think it would have made a much better theater release.
Yeah.
Because people will go for the ride and they'll enjoy it. But it's kind of weird in this format.
Do you have any other technical things you wanted to talk about before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. I mean,
Okay.
that's the thing. We've talked about the ending. The ending was not satisfying to me, but I love the idea that it could be interpreted for something that's a greater sort of commentary on U.S. foreign policy or something like that. But it's just, I think at this movie's best, it's just, if you look at it for this kind of small, compact psychological thriller, that's where you're going to get the most enjoyment out of this movie. And I think those movies have a great audience. It's great if you have Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
This would be, and you like those kind of movies, this would be a great one for you to check out because it's got some likable actors and it's a short, easy story that you won't have to take breaks with.
Yeah. No, again, it's one that I can recommend for easy, light popcorn entertainment to anybody. It's not going to satisfy your cravings for a war film. And it's not going to, if you're looking for some statement about anything, this is not the film. But this is sort of our first of our little trio of films that deal with, that are set during the Middle East conflict. So this was 2017. Our next two are actually came out in 2019. So our next film up is The Yellow Birds, which is also available only to stream on Amazon Prime. And then our third film right now, Kill Team, is also Amazon Prime and also Canopy. So for this little, Middle East war conflict arc of films will be residing here in Amazon Prime territory for these. So if you
evil empire.
So if you've got your Amazon Prime, that's all you need to watch these. If you don't, hey, get a free trial and watch along with us for these three films. So, JJ, a great conversation about a short little tight little film, but hey, less traumatic than what we came out of from.
Very
right?
much
I mean,
so.
I think we've lightened the tone a little here.
This one was popcorn worthy, so I think that's good.
All right. Well, thank you, listeners, for listening to Trailer Rewind, and Hondo. Thank you for listening to Trailer Rewind. If anything we said here entertained, educated, or even enraged you, we'd like you to tell people about this podcast. Whatever your listening platform is, please share, rate, or write a short review. It helps other podcast listeners find us. If you enjoy connecting with other film fans, you can become a member of our community on Discord. It's free, and there's always an interesting dialogue or debate to jump into. You can also financially support us. Perks include early access to episodes, exclusive Discord channels, the opportunity to chat with us live before we record an episode, and the warm feeling you get knowing you are contributing support to the behind-the-scenes resources that help everyone here at the Next Real family of podcasts. So please join us on Discord or become a Patreon supporter. Either way, we would love to have you be part of our community. Hondo.